SR changes for Overwatch?
So, Overwatch has, I've talked about this in the past, but Overwatch has quite possibly like the worst ranking system in existence. I've completely stopped playing ranked and quick play generally because I don't think that I don't think that that play style is actually that fun. Because it's what's the point in playing if you're not getting a complete game? But competitive is just completely like a shit show. And a good portion of the reason that Overwatch competitive is a shit show is they have this thing in their matchmaking system where if you look at real competitive games, they have strict win loss SR systems or ELO systems or MMR system or whatever you want to call it. Your number increases by a set amount if you win and decreases by a set amount if you lose. So the player who contributes to their team winning more frequently mathematically gets placed higher, right? The person who is more, and you can say, oh, well, what if they get worse teams? On average, their teams are going to be in the exact same as everyone else's. So over enough iterations, after playing enough games, you will inevitably put people where they belong. It's an inevitability. And when you add in other things, you say, oh, well, let's, put in a bonus if you do a lot of damage relative to how much damage people usually do on that character or in whatever situation. Then, so let's give them a bonus to their SR. Then all of a sudden it changes the way that the system works. So in the most extreme cases, you can have people who have, and this is the case in Overwatch, you can have people who have between a 30 and 40% win rate who are in the highest of the high skill bracket and continue climbing in MMR because every time they lose practically nothing, and every time they win big because they're playing the system as opposed to playing to win the match, right? Winning the match is not how you get the highest MMR. You get the highest MMR by maximizing your personal stats in every game. That's how to win at Overwatch, okay? So they're changing that. So they're finally removing all of that shit. But they're only doing it for the top 20% of players. Okay, they're only doing it if you're in Diamond tier and above. Now, this is really funny because there's this sort of mythical idea, this thing called ELO Hell, which is something that people have said exists in every competitive game ever, for the most part because people don't want to live with the fact that they are in fact mediocre. Okay? That it is in fact hard to be higher than the 80th percentile at a thing, right? You can't have 80% of your player base be in the 20th percentile. That's not how it works, right? So anyway, the basic gist here is, so there's this idea that, like, basically players at a certain level play with high enough skill that it becomes very difficult for your individual play to show up in an otherwise relatively random game. But the key is that they have very high skill, but they don't have the coherent team play that allows the true game that you get at the top tiers to form. That's the basic idea of ELO Hell, is this transitory period between low MMRs where a person who basically knows how to control their character can just stomp the enemy team so badly that they automatically are going to be contributing and causing wins for their team, and the high MMR where you have to actually play the game correctly, you have to do team-based play, things like that, and where that comes into play. So most games have different skills that are learned at different time periods, and as you go through the MMR brackets, you can see players that are opposing you get better at the game. That's never been the case with Overwatch. Overwatch has never had anything resembling like an ELO Hell, because Overwatch has always just been, if you have really really good fast twitch reflexes, and you play characters in such a way that you can do more damage and get more kills on them than other people using the same character, you will automatically progress in rank, and you will never stop progressing in rank until you start being worse at the heroes that you're playing than other players in terms of just dealing raw damage, which is generally fast twitch reflexes and simple stuff like that. Has nothing to do with like team play. So anyway, so Overwatch has never had that because what would people even be talking about? There's no mythical region where people are playing the game correctly. Nobody who plays Overwatch competitive is playing it correctly, because the people who are at the top, is the highest level of competitive, are by definition the people who are playing the actual MMR system the way that it exists today, which means that they are playing the heroes that they are going to do the absolute best for their personal performance on, as opposed to getting the highest win rate. Okay? So anyway, that's the basic gist of that. But what's interesting is that this change, because of the fact that they're creating effectively two matchmaking systems, they're creating two SR systems now. So when you get to the 80th percentile, there's a sudden and spontaneous shift. So all of a sudden, when you get to the 80th percentile, you're no longer being judged based off of like all of these hidden like performance metrics that Blizzard is judging you on. You're instead just judged based off of whether you can win the game or not. Now, what's interesting about that is that it basically means that people who do not have a good strategy to win the game, but who are very good at fast twitch reflexes, are basically going to all be shunted to exactly one place at the 80th percentile. People who either have no interest in or cannot play in a strategic and like coherent manner, but who do have very good technical skills, are going to all be at the 80th percentile exactly, because that's the point where you transition the two systems. So what's going to be really interesting is that for the first time in any game that I have ever heard of, Elo Hell is going to be a mathematically demonstrable point in the MMR system, in the SR system. You will be able to see the exact point at which it becomes almost impossible to progress, because everyone around you is a one-trick god at whatever character they're playing at. They're playing as some character that they are fucking amazing at dealing just damage and killing things and getting all of the optimization for the MMR system, the SR system that exists up to the 80th percentile, but who can't win games, right, with any degree of consistency. So for a player who wants to play the game to win, a player who wants to play at the highest tier, they're going to have to get through a literal Elo Hell. They're going to have to get through all of these players who are, by definition, not playing to win. Right? They're playing for a different reward metric completely. Because up until you get to the 80th percentile, you are optimized for a completely different thing. You're not optimized for winning the game. You're optimized for min-maxing your bonus SR that you get from getting kills, from dealing trash damage, from doing all these different things that are often very good for your team, but also can be just not that meaningful depending on the specific circumstances, right? So anyway, the whole thing seems to me to be incredibly hilarious, because Blizzard has no idea how to run a competitive system. It seems like, I don't know why, because like the arenas in World of Warcraft were not this fucked up. They did not have all of these super complicated, bizarre rule sets that they created there. And it's so easy to create an SR system that works. And they finally like bit the bullet and decided to do it for the top 20% of players. But for everyone below the top 20%, all of the really like crazy one tricks that are in Grandmasters who are like ludicrously talented at playing a given hero in an incredibly stupid way. So people who play Mei and don't use her left click at all because all they're doing is sniping headshots at people all day, which is not why are you playing Mei? And the reason they're playing Mei is because nobody basically by playing Mei in that weird way, they can farm SR really fast because no one plays Mei that way. That's not how Mei is meant to be played. That's not her strength or her skill set. So it's not a good way to win games, but it's a great way to like it's a great way to farm SR because you don't need a 50% win rate or a 60% win rate. You can sneak by on a 40 to 30% win rate and be fine, right? As long as you're performing on the performance metrics at a high enough rate compared to other players. So anyway, this is going to be a very interesting and amusing period for Overwatch and it's going to be incredibly rage-inducing for anyone who wants to actually climb through the rankings because I guarantee you as soon as this is implemented, people are going to start bitching about the fact that it is absolutely impossible for a person who wants to play the game correctly to get beyond the one tricks. Like, you're not going to be able to pass the people who are currently in Grandmasters using one tricks, who are going to be, like, basically dropped to the 80th percentile because they're not playing the way that system works above that point. But below that point, it still works that same way. So they will never drop below that point, right? Their MMR has a floor to it. And so that play style will continue to be the optimal play in order to get through. And it's going to be interesting to see at the low tiers of the like real competitive system, right, where you actually have, you know, people who win games gain SR and people who lose games lose SR. Like once that system gets there, it's going to be interesting to see how frustrated people in, say, the 80th to the 90th percentile get by the fact that they're going to be inundated constantly with players who are still doing the old SR system, right? Because they can't drop below the 80th percentile, right? If you're playing to win, right, you can easily fall below the 80th percentile. If you're playing to win the game, it's easy. As soon as you fall below the 80th percentile, you're now in ELO hell. Good fucking luck getting back above the 80th percentile. Because as you're playing, you know, characters that your team needs and you're trying to orient strategies that will work, the rest of the people on your team are going to be maximizing their damage output on the one hero they know how to play. And they're going to be having a good time. So anyway, this is going to be an interesting thing. I've never seen ELO Hell be implemented seemingly deliberately by the developers, but the consequences of implementing the system in the way that they intend to implement it are so hilariously obvious that I have no idea how it is that Blizzard thinks that this is a good idea. But I guess that their intention is to say, you know what? Let's torture everyone who wants to play this game competitively who isn't in the top 20%. Let's torture everyone who, you know, has any interest in improving at this game or anything like that. Anyway, this is going to be really funny to watch. The rage is going to be real and it's going to be funny. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. If you're playing Overwatch, good luck in your next competitive season. If you're below the 80th percentile, you're probably never getting above it once they implement this. And if you are above the 80th percentile, then congratulations. You'll either drop below it because the system has been optimized in a way that is arbitrarily pushing you above when you shouldn't be there, or you're going to finally get rewarded properly for the kind of play that you have, and you're going to raise in your rank appropriately. I don't think there's going to be anybody whose rank is not going to substantially change. Anyone who's in, what is it, platinum? Is it platinum? I don't even remember the colors. So diamond. So everyone in diamond and above is going to have their SR change dramatically as soon as this is released. As soon as this is released, everybody's positioning is going to be massively different because there's just going to be so much moving around of all the characters all the people in the system who are optimized for the existing system. And anyway, good luck with that, folks. And later.